So welcome to the Diversity Speaks, Addressing Your Dignity. This afternoon, we have Dr. Karen Armstrong and also Sue Patterson. So we're so glad that they're here. We're going to get straight to it. Karen Armstrong is the director of the Dignity Collaborative at Penn State, Altoona, a university-wide hub advancing dignity center research, leadership, education, and deploration of across campuses, workplaces, and communities. She's a clinically trained mental health counselor whose career has included designing equity focused programs and coaching for educators, executives, and civic leaders in roles spanning Penn State outreach and online education, World Campus Career Services, and Florida State College at Jacksonville. Did I just say Florida? I did. And then we also have Sue Patterson, who serves as the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, also at Penn State Altoona, where she also holds the role of Athletics, Diversity, and Inclusion designee. She's an integral member of the Dignity Collaborative initiative launched in January to advance a culture of belonging, engagement, and community impact. So while we were waiting to start our meeting today, I was mentioning, we're a civil rights agency here and we work in the margins in a sense of, we're working always with I want to say the divisions, right? We're working in race and religion and those areas of sex and gender and sexual orientation. And so it feels really good um, to speak on a thing that will bring us together, which is human dignity, the kind of overarching, kind of hover over those things in society. Outside of the things that want to divide us, which are those things such as like race and gender and age and those discriminatory things. So it's really good to be able to have Dr. Armstrong and Sue Patterson here today to speak with us about human dignity. So we welcome you all. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I just want to express our sincere appreciation for being invited to be able to be in this room. We're going to talk about addressing dignity, and we're hoping that you're going to want to interact with us because this will work better if you interact back. So there's going to be collaborative learning, some chat-driven activities, and hopefully some reflection and commitment. If you can go ahead and advance that slide. So what does today's journey look like? Well, we're going to hopefully do this journey in about 6 steps, where we're going to start out trying to give you some understanding by doing things like defining dignity and understanding the distinction between dignity and respect. Then we're going to ask you to chat back to us and interact and have this be a little more personal. We'll introduce you to a tool called the Dignity Index, which is an 8-point scale. We'll then use Dr. Donna Hicks' work to give you a framework of dignity and what those 10 elements are. Then we'll do a scenario and practice, because it doesn't mean anything just to get knowledge if we don't figure out how it actually works. And then we're going to hopefully be able to take it home with you, and we're going to ask you to make a personal dignity commitment and what this means to you, whether in your work, in your personal life, or both places. But hopefully you're excited to be part of this journey with us. You can go ahead and advance the slide.
So thank you for that introduction, Sue, to what we're talking about today. I just want to do a quick explanation because you'll see Sue and I go back and forth. I go by Karen also, so feel free to call me Karen. But Sue and I are kind of like, you ever do doubles in tennis, right? Where the two people work so closely together that you know what the other person is thinking, so that you can connect and make an impact um, and win the game. Right. And the game here is dignity for all. And so I am very grateful to have Sue as my partner in this, who just, she makes it happen, um, and we work together. So if you see us going back and forth, understand that that's normal. We're not interrupting each other, but we are, just think of tennis. We're playing doubles, and so, um, but starting off with dignity, often people think, dignity, you got to be nice, you got to be kind, you got to work with one another. We're for niceness, we're for kindness. We think those things are good. But really, dignity is your inherent worth. You are born with dignity, it cannot be removed from you. It is not something you earn. So it all the way goes back to Aristotle. who did, the great philosophers and things. And Aristotle really believed that there needed to be something in society that reflected you are worthy. So as we go through this work today, I want you to think about the fact that you are worthy, whether you're having a tremendous day and do everything right and it couldn't be better, or your day is like, this is just awful. Everything has gone wrong. And I wish it was a different day. You are worthy. So just kind of meditate on that for a second. Next slide, please. So often when we talk about dignity, we hear the words dignity and respect, and they are said together. You have to show dignity and respect to people. We do the Dignity Collaborative based on evidence and research. And so the research we used is Dr. Donna Hicks. We'll talk more about her in a moment. But there's a distinction between dignity and respect. So, as I just said, it's your inherent worth. That's what dignity is. It can't be earned. Respect can be. They are vastly different things. If I just said Sue and I are partners in this, right? Like when she does something, I know what's happening. I do something, she knows what's happening. She is invaluable to this work, and I'm hoping she feels the same for me. If I just started screaming at Sue, yelling at her right now, you all might lose some respect for me, right? Sue is sitting there. She is ready to go. She has started this day off, and I just start screaming at her. I probably will not have earned your respect because of my behavior. However, I would still have inherent worth. The same for Sue. If she just started screaming right now, she would still have inherent worth, even if that respect is gone. So think about dignity and respect from that perspective, just to kind of pull it in a little bit more. Have you ever had a family member, a colleague, um, a neighbor, somebody in your life that you were like, I will not physically hurt this person. I'm not going to do it. But the things they're doing and saying are really harmful, and I just can't respect them. That is because there's a difference between dignity and respect. Dignity is you recognize them as a human being, respect is earned. Dignity is universal. We all have it. It is ours. And when I say all, I mean the whole planet. The entire existence of everyone has dignity. They have worth because they are. Respect is variable. It depends on how you feel about a person, it depends on their behavior. We see this a lot. And Anita was really great in kind of talking about the distinctions and differences right now in society. Politically, there may be people that you just can't respect, but you recognize they are human, right? And whereas another person might say, I love them, they're so great. That's exactly who I voted for, and this is why. And so you think about it as variable with those examples. Dignity is unconditional. Again, you cannot lose it, you don't earn it, it's just yours. Respect can be decreased or increased depending on the behavior. So think about respect as behavioral. And then going into it's a baseline for all human interaction, which is a lot of what Anita was talking about. And respect is built on qualities. It's built on those things that you valued and having those shared values. And then a lot of what we're going to discuss today is dignity is recognized, not granted. So you might feel like somebody doesn't demonstrate dignity to you, but they don't grant you dignity because it's already yours. It already belongs to you. Whereas respect is role based, it's often given. Know that that's normal, that that's okay. It doesn't mean you've done something wrong. But those are some clear distinctions. And as Anita was talking about, working with various communities that are on the margin, what we have found, what Sue and I have found, is that for many folks, that difference between dignity and respect is a release. You're not asking somebody who doesn't respect your existence, that doesn't respect who you are and what you value. That makes sense. You are showing that inherent worth and recognition as another human being. So, next slide, please.
Okay, so now you got that beginning intro of where we're at, and now we're hoping that you want to interact some with us. So we're calling this a chat storm, and we're going to look from the lens of what does dignity mean to you? So it's on the slide what we're looking for, but I'm going to read it to you anyway, just so that you're there hearing it. So in the chat, you can type your answer. If you have something burning to say, then let us know and we can see about having you be able to speak it. But think of a time someone made you feel truly valued. What did they do? What did they say? So think in your story. And as you think of that, tell us your response in the chat window. As you see those coming up, read other people's responses, see what they're sharing about when they felt valued and what it felt like and what they saw. And then let's look for some common themes that are there. So jump right into that chat box and start to tell us about what made you feel truly valued.
And I can, oh, so one example is I had a hard day and a friend said, tell me everything. Um, I won't read them all, but because I know Sue is there too. And it looks like there's a hand up.
Yeah, you can get off mute, Leanne. You all okay with that? You can get off mute, Leanne.
I would just like to say quickly, I work with special needs students, and I would always encourage them by having them repeat positive affirmations to me before they took a test, before they did any type of small group instruction. And at the end of it, I would tell them, you got this. And the year that I was retiring, one of the students came into the room I was in, and he had a magnet. And on that magnet, it said, you got this. And he wanted to give it to me. And I told him, no, I want you to keep it. So whenever you look at that magnet, you think of me and always remember that you got this. I felt very valued. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you. That's just amazing because it puts together those pieces that you were showing value and letting other people feel valued and the impact you had on them and how that turned right around and that they allowed you to feel valued because of what you've shared out. That's powerful. Thank you.
Thank
Sue, would you like me to read some from the chat, or would you like to? You tell me what's.
You are welcome. I am happy we jump back and forth. So jump right in, Karen.
So somebody just noted that when they say they have a mental health day and need a mental health day, the support for that. Can I tell you how many workplaces don't do that and how valued people feel, just as the person in the chat said, when they can say, and this is what I need today, and they receive it and it's with warmth and care. And so I think that's just absolutely awesome. Just reading through.
I love I see, I'm reading the one of I made a suggestion to expand a competition and I was thanked for the suggestion. How often are we sharing stuff and people are telling us all the reasons why it might not work, but what a different experience and how valued to just be thank you for sharing your suggestion.
These are really awesome. As a new student learning a new language, a colleague insisted on having others in my friend group communicate in English so that I could feel included and heard. That is just so beautiful, right? When you're like, I'm learning something new. How am I going to be included in this thing? And people go out of their way to make sure that you are. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm just curious if somebody can share how they found this exercise. Just thinking about how you are valued. Did you find it in and of itself affirming? Is it something you typically do?
have my hand raised.
Jump right in.
It was very affirming and just and while I'm reading others examples, I can think of other examples of affirmation that came up, and it's just very affirming and it dignifies just like, oh wow, those places where you can realizing like, okay, other ways that you can affirm other people in your life that you want to continue to affirm. You want to exponentially affirm and continue to affirm. Does that make sense? Like you want this to be a snowball effect. You want to
Well said.
continue it. You want to exponentially continue to do this
Yes.
And
because it feels so great. You want that feeling to continue.
And I think that's a cool thing because I was just looking at what are those common themes there and what's popping up. And one is I think we're feeding off each other. The more we read somebody else's, it reminds us of, oh, I remember feeling this and I remember feeling this, so it grows. But even reading through these are all major impacts with minor actions of reminding how simple it is to make somebody else feel valued, how to feel valued ourselves, because what seems to be in there is I was seen, I was heard, and it looked like I mattered. Like that's what I feel keeps coming through there. It was just all of a sudden we matter. Which lines up really with exactly where we're at and where we're talking today.
So we're going to move to the next slide. Thank you all for your participation. So we'll tell you the elements of dignity. Interestingly, what we use is the dignity model, and that was developed by Dr. Donna Hicks. She did this as a conflict resolution expert for the United Nations. And these are the tools that were used to stop literal wars. And so we're just taking those and applying them. We'll go through them rather quickly, but I encourage you on your own, take a step and review these and think about how they apply to you. So one is identity acceptance, that feeling of I am authentically myself and these identities matter to me, whatever your identities are, that they matter to you and that people accept them. And when we talk about acceptance under the dignity model, it is that you are not inferior or superior to another person. It is not getting somebody's approval of your identity, but rather you are not inferior or superior to another. And that is key to this. Another aspect that is key is acknowledgement. Again, I'll use that example of yelling at Sue. If I yelled at Sue and didn't acknowledge that I was wrong, that would hurt her. I would argue that it would hurt me too. But when you have wrong happen to you and it's not acknowledged, it is harmful to your own worth, right? That this thing happened and it really bothered me. It really hurt me. So to have others acknowledge, yeah, I hear you. And I understand it. It goes back to what Sue was just saying a second ago about feeling seen, feeling heard, knowing you matter. So that acknowledgement is vital. Another piece of this is recognition. People have mentioned it in the chat. When you do something amazing and wonderful, when you've worked hard, we're not talking about the outcome. We're talking about what you've put forward to a thing, the thoughtfulness of it. Being recognized for that also enhances your inherent worth. Hey, listen, what I just contributed, what I just thought, what I just shared, big, small, in between, having it recognized also impacts your inherent worth. Next slide, please. So other aspects, fairness. Think about for a moment what it is like when you see others advantaged in a way, but you've worked equally hard and feeling like that's not fair. If you've ever felt like there are opportunities not available to you, not because you haven't earned them, but just because, hey, I know Sue, so I want to give every opportunity to Sue because I know her and she is fantastic. But I don't know you as well. And you may also be fantastic. I believe you are, right? And so to not provide those opportunities. That is the part of fairness. When people start talking to you about that's not fair, when something is happening, they're really talking about, do you see I matter? So that's that piece of fairness that is so vital. The benefit of the doubt is something we don't often think about. Have you ever made a mistake? I have. I have definitely made mistakes. The assumption that I've done it deliberately, that you're careless, that you're reckless, that you just don't pay attention, all those things, whether you've said them to others or you've experienced that yourself, also can hinder that feeling of inherent worth. And so having the benefit of the doubt and giving the benefit of the doubt is another element of dignity. One that we'll also highlight, again, we're not going to go through all of these, but understanding. So feeling like your perspective is understood. It may not always change a situation, but to not be heard, to not be able to express it, that alone impacts the feeling of inherent worth for many, many people. I am one of them. Again, as this dignity model is demonstrated, you might find some of these resonate more with you than others. Feeling your perspective matters is one of those things. So that's what that understanding means. And then independence. You are free to make your own choices, to have your own thoughts, to share your ideas. Often that piece of independence is why we see wars. So as Dr. Hicks developed this, she worked really closely with Desmond Tutu, and they would go forward in warring countries and independence. The inability to make one's own decision was often what started these wars. You're going to do this or you're going to do that as a country and as a people. So independence, whether it is on a individual level or it's on a national level, really makes a difference to your inherent worth. And so these are just some of those aspects of dignity that we talk about. When we talk about dignity, they are evidence based. We've done research on all of these. They've been done for, believe it or not, over 20 years of research based on this dignity model. And so know that when you're feeling that, oh, why am I feeling like I don't matter? Reflect on these because it helps you nail down what needs to be addressed. And with that, we're going to move to the next slide. So we're going to talk about dignity and dignity language because a lot of what we've talked about so far is theoretical, but it's great to leave a place and know how to apply some tools. So we're going to dive into what's called the Dignity Index. But first, we need to talk about, from a research perspective, what we found is the definition of contempt. This is by Dr. Arthur Brooks. He's worked really closely with Dr. Hicks, and we are fortunate at the Dignity Collaborative to work really closely, especially with Dr. Hicks. She is like in the room with us on a continual basis. That room is virtual, but she's in the room with us on a continual basis. And when we talk about contempt, contempt is that feeling that you are worthless. So connecting that to dignity, you have worth, you have value. The highest level of contempt is you are a worthless being. Just sit with that for a second. How does that feel? And then what happens when contempt is there? Contempt, research has shown, leads to violence. The greatest level of contempt is, again, what you're seeing in wars. You see that I'm worthless. We as a country can't make a decision. We are going to fight back. Have you seen that happen in personal relationships, in personal arguments, whether it's at home with your family, it could be with neighbors, it could be in the workplace. It's that feeling of worthlessness. What changes contempt is dignity. What eases that division is dignity. Yes, you have worth and that matters. So applying the electrifying effect is spreading any message and seeing it take off. We've seen that happen in political spaces. I can tell you this also happens in the dignity space. Sue and I have experienced this. People learn more about dignity and they want to learn more and more and more. So this also has electrifying effect. There's the mirror effect. You may find at the end of the day that you are thinking about those people who have harmed and hurt you. Stick with dignity. Stay with this. Stay with those things you learned. Eventually you come around to, hey, wait a second. I've done that. It's the reason that I use myself as an example doing something wrong. And Sue is kind enough to be that person who has experienced that wrong because I've done wrong things and this mirror effect has helped me. I'm assuming for most people throughout our lives we've done something that we feel like I shouldn't have done or said that thing. I wish I could do it over again. So the mirror effect lets you look at yourself, but know that it's okay if you're starting off thinking about those people who have harmed you, because that's just the first step. The next step circles around to that mirror effect. And then the beautiful part of this is the agency effect. You have a role in addressing contempt versus dignity. And we're going to show you what that means in the language perspective of it. But this is real and it's tangible, and understanding that you can move closer to dignity and farther away from contempt. There is a choice. It's that thought, wow, I really don't need their opinion because their opinion doesn't matter, is moving closer to contempt. I need to hear their perspective, is moving closer to dignity. Know that that doesn't mean you need to agree or respect the person. You might hear their perspective and say, I don't respect that. I don't value what they're saying. As a matter of fact, I totally disagree. That's great. That is okay. This is just helping you recognize when it is happening, not that you should suddenly give everybody respect when they haven't earned it. So there's a difference and a direct connection. Moving contempt is you are worthless. Dignity is I don't agree. I'm not going to show you respect because I don't agree with you, but I will show you dignity. And I will honor that you as a human being have worth, even if I don't respect your perspective. So that's getting into the theoretical parts. We love to show that there's research behind this and talk about the research parts because we're going to get into the practical application. And so, next slide, please.
So this is where you start to look at some of those practical and actually, how do I break this down? So that you're looking at a dignity scale and it shows you from 1 where contempt lives, the whole way over to 8, which is full dignity. And you can go through those and read those. I'm not going to read each one because we're going to break it down actually in another slide. But one of the things that I want to say, and one of the things that as we start this, I like to look at people as our goal is to consistently speak and act at a level 5 or above. And this is where I'm asking you to give yourself some grace, because all of a sudden, if you walk into this and say, I'm going to become an 8 in everything that I do, you are not giving yourself much dignity and noticing your own worth because you're expecting a perfection that probably is not going to exist. So if we look at 1, contempt, and look at that scale of they aren't human. Do you see how that violence might live in that place if we can't even see somebody as human? In those 4s and 5s, 4 is they don't belong. 5, we're starting to step into dignity zone. They have a right to be heard. And then moving your way up into full dignity. So if you look at it, those 1, 2, 3, 4, divisive language, as you go down that scale, the more divisive it becomes. As that 5 going up, you start to notice the language of dignity starting to emerge in those. Go to the next slide and we'll break them down a little bit more. So this is based on a tool called the Dignity Index. So the first 4 are those areas of contempt, and that's kind of matching what that scale was on the last one. So this kind of breaks it down a little bit. With that level 1, you're looking violent words, violent actions, It's somebody less than human. We don't even see them there. We actually are saying it's okay to have violence because they're not human. It's our moral duty to destroy them before they destroy us. Do you feel that contempt level there and how that works? You move up a little bit into 2. This one is kind of saying these people are evil. They're going to ruin everything. So it's us versus them. So we might not go as far as saying they don't have a right to exist, but they better fix what's going on because of the evilness that's existing. Stepping into 3, this is where you're starting to look at somebody's moral character and, you know, their capabilities or competence. So this is where, again, it's an us versus them. But at this level, instead of saying they don't have a right to exist, instead of saying they're evil, we're saying we're the good people and they're the bad people. So this is where we just need them to learn better. Then you go up into 4. This is this, we're better than those people. They don't really belong. They're not one of us. So this is that belonging piece, you know, that othering, that outside where we start talking about those people instead of doing that. So this is where we're not at violence anymore, but we're still not at a place where we're saying to people that they exist in an okay way and who they are has a space. That's the contempt side. So those are levels 1 to 4. Now let's jump 1 slide forward. All right. Now this is when you're starting to get into dignity. So in level 5, you're listening to the other side's point of view. They can explain their views, they can explain their goals, their plans. So they have a right to be here. It's okay that we want to hear from them. They belong in the space. So we're saying you're welcome here. We are offering the dignity that they can exist in our space and share some of themselves. But we're not quite still stepping into that spot of what do we want to do with that. 6 is where we start to find common ground. Now we're not 2 completely other groups. This is a place where we're starting to say, we can talk a little bit. There's things that we share in common. There's values that we may have. Now we're starting to see each other a little bit and noticing that there's some worth. 7 is when we're going to start engaging. We're engaging in the other side. We're discussing our values, our interests, even if we don't share them. And this is a point where we're open to admitting mistakes or changing our minds. Do you see that big leap up? The one before, it's okay that we can have something in common. This one's saying we may not have things, we may not agree on something, but I can be open to hearing different and thinking differently. And in the next one, I can see myself in every human being. I refuse to hate anyone, and I offer dignity to everyone. This is where we're noticing somebody's inherent worth, regardless of our differences, regardless of the places we disagree. There are going to be spots that we are going to disagree and never try and find a place of agreement. But that's so okay because this person has worth. And that's how that scale works. As you get higher and higher, it's able to put aside the piece of, I might disagree with almost everything you believe, and yet you have worth and I'm glad you're here. And we just completely welcome in. And it's that acceptance, that's fairness, it's honoring just their right to existence and that they have a valuable piece to our existence. So this is a look at the dignity index and how we do that. This tool for me is invaluable. I'm going to go off script a little bit on Karen, but I'm going to tell you this tool is part of what brought me into this work. Because I get the theoretical, I get the thoughts about it. And what it did for me is that I worked with a group and we all agreed until one statement, and then I disagreed with everybody in my group. And I kept saying to him, but I think this is how it should be rated. And at first I was told that the rating that I matched what the folks at the Dignity Index said. But then the problem was they shared with us who said that statement that I hadn't heard before. And that person, I disagreed with everything about them. I did not respect them. And all of a sudden I wanted to change my score. So my entrance into this was not what other people were doing. It was the reality that I had a lot more work to do to have my values actually match my behavior. So I think this is an invaluable tool that helps us work through that. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead to the next slide. All right, so now we're back to you and we're looking for your interaction again. So we've given you a framework. We've talked to you about the dignity index and some of those. So now we're going to ask you to score the language. So I'm going to ask you in chat. I'm going to read these just in case anybody's not seeing them on their screen. But feel free if you're reading ahead to jump right in the chat. But what we're going to ask you to do is pick one of the statements and explain how the language demonstrates contempt or dignity. So A, those people have no idea what they're talking about. They're destroying everything we've built. I disagree with their approach, but I'd like to understand why they see it differently. They're not just wrong, they're dangerous. We can't let them win. And the last one, we share more common ground than we realize. Let's start there and work through our differences. So jump into the chat and score them. If you have a number, I know I can't show you the same screen with all those and see the comments. Number it, but really, is it contempt? Is it dignity? And why are you seeing that?
And just while we wait, Anita shared that she believes 1 in 8 are more dangerous. And I understand those extremes, right? Perfection can be dangerous. That need to, I always get it right in every second of my life, always. Not only is that unrealistic, but it can spiral people, right? Versus living in the middle. And that is why Sue was highlighting that middle area, which is where we hope to live in, and where we hope to kind of engage. And so thank you, Anita, for sharing that. So know that you don't have to recopy the whole sentence. You could just put A, and this is the word that I thought showed dignity or contempt, or B, and this is the word that I thought could show dignity or contempt. We're also open to unmuting and talking about that. Awesome.
All right. Yeah, common ground. Let me realize this.
So I'm wondering, Carson, if you would be okay to just take a moment to unmute and provide one of your examples that
Sure,
you've
sorry,
shown.
I realized I didn't read clearly. It said pick one and I
Okay.
picked all four. Um, I think I'll just start with A. I had to pull up the index here on a different screen, but I picked 3 because we're the good people and they're the bad people. It's us versus them. So I felt like that was where this one was landing. Of those people have no idea what they're talking about. They're destroying everything we've built. Maybe it's a 2. I didn't hear the evilness in the description, which is why I didn't pick 2.
And so for this exercise, we don't really need to rate it because we don't have the full scale up for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand what you're saying about that contempt piece. And I'm hearing the same thing from Sarah, where they're dangerous is language of contempt,
Mm-hmm.
right? To recognize when people say they're dangerous, there's language of contempt. And so we're just reading them through right now as well. Yes, from Penny, I'd like to understand is a great start. That doesn't mean you're going to agree or totally understand, but I'd like to is really powerful. So I don't know if you feel comfortable, Penny, but I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about your thoughts, and then where you start to recognize another's dignity. I would just like to hear your perspective. No pressure. If you're like, no, thank you, you can put that in the chat too. There's no pressure to have to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if I have more to say on that. I just think that was my favorite one because it just demonstrates that, I realize that they believe something differently than me, but I would really like to understand. So to me, that's the start of all dignity. I think it's realizing that just because it's different, it's not wrong. So that one spoke to me, but I don't know if I have anything additional to say about it, but that one spoke to me the most.
Penny, what I heard through that, and this might be just because I know you and I can maybe add this, what I heard is in that statement is you were giving somebody validity.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and making them seen in that acceptance. So when we look back to some of the framework that we talked about before, it was really that piece of that validity of their personhood and their thoughts.
Yes. Thank you.
And so next slide, please. So what Sue was just saying brings this to life, which is making that connection. So finding common ground within the dignity model and the dignity index, really what that does to you is create safety and inclusion. That shared humanity as a piece. Safety under the elements of dignity includes both physical and psychological. If you don't feel like you can share your opinion, your perspective, I've seen this happen more times than I can tell you, where people will say, this is within the workplace, how was your weekend? And there will be somebody there who feels like, I can't share because I don't know what your response will be when I talk about what my partner and I did. And it could be you just went to the movie, right? But this relationship is a little bit different than the traditional relationship. And what I'm thinking about as an example was there was an individual who I knew that was part of a throuple, and they wanted to share that this throuple went to a movie over the weekend, and they all really loved the movie. Like it just, when you go to a really great movie and you want to talk about it, but they didn't feel that they
Define
could
a
share that.
can you
Oh, I'm
define a
sorry.
throuple for people who may
I
not know?
apologize.
Mhm.
Yes, I apologize. So a throuple is a relationship with three people. They're all willingly, happily consenting in this relationship of three, especially in this person who felt like they wanted to share that in the workplace. And this is a workplace scenario that I experienced, that they came to me and said, wow, I felt like I couldn't share because I'm in a relationship where there are three of us what our weekend was, which was just a movie, right? That we all loved. Like it was a great movie, but I couldn't share it because I'm in a throuple, right? And so that safety piece is I can't even engage in something as basic as we went to a movie because I don't know the response. That also impacts inclusion because now I'm excluded from something as basic as how was your weekend? Right. And so the dignity model and the dignity index helps to show getting to a common ground where people feel safe and included to share who they are, that they're not going to be judged, they're not going to be belittled, demeaned, made fun of. That's just one example. There are a million other examples that I'm sure all of you can think of, even within your workspaces and communities where people choose not to share or disclose. I've heard similar things with disabilities. And I'm just using this first one as an example. They're afraid to say, my Friday, I had to go to the doctor and I really want to share what's happening, but I don't know what the response will be. And if people will think I can't do my job. That is what I've heard over and over and over again in workspaces. So when we talk about safety and inclusion, it is looking at those elements of worth and then finding common ground means, yes, we can all share something as basic as I went to the doctor or I went to the movies without being judged, whatever that frame may be. Another example is accountability. Um, have you ever been in spaces where people are afraid to make mistakes? People feel like I just can't do it. When we look at a number 7 on the dignity index, and what the dignity index is talking about is also it is okay to say I was wrong. I made a mistake and I'm going to own that. And so that's that accountability piece that within the dignity model brings people closer together. Last example, I'm going to share is understanding and recognition. I may have a very unique perspective. So I share with people I'm the parent of a person with a disability. My perspective in that space is going to be very different than people who may not have kids with disabilities. Um, Being understood from my perspective and recognize that I have a unique point of view and the contribution that that point of view adds is really, really vital. And that's what this index and the elements of dignity can bring to one another, is helping you see how, in a practical term, does this work in everyday life. I am using workplace examples. However, both Sue and I work really closely in communities, right? And these are things we hear in communities all the time, that whatever it is about me that feels different compared to others, I want to be able to share. I want to be able to share my life with others within this community and feel recognized for my contributions. Sue, other thoughts about this slide?
No, I think you covered it really well of how it all goes together and how it's not always the big stuff, and kind of the reminding there is the big stuff there, but it's often our framework needs to be built on the small stuff.
Next slide, please. And
So
so
we're back jumping in to interact some. So for a lot of us and a lot of this here is a lot of stuff in public service, and what does that look like? So I'm going to read a scenario, and then there's 3 question categories there, and we're going to ask you to jump in and put in the chat what your thoughts are for one of those questions. The scenario is, during a public input session, a longtime community member raises a concern about a proposed policy change. After an employee begins to respond, the community member interrupts dismissively, saying, "That's not really relevant. You're missing the point," and continues speaking over the panelist. The exchange creates visible tension, and the employee shortens their response before moving on to the next agenda item. I imagine you can probably all visualize this happening in different scenarios of where you're at. So maybe you're going to answer the question, which dignity elements were violated? Where does it fall in the dignity index? Maybe your answer is going to be, how might the community member be feeling? How might you be feeling? What is the impact on their willingness to engage with your organization in the future? And what barriers does this create for you to engage community members? How hard is it to continue to do the work when something like this has happened? Or maybe the question for you is, what could the employee, a colleague on the panel, or the meeting facilitator do to move the interaction up the dignity index scale? So jump in there and jump into the chat, raise your hand, and we'll let you unmute whatever those are. And what do you do when something like this happens? How are you feeling? How do you think that person might be feeling? What's going on in your head? And how does that relate to the dignity, and how do we change where it landed?
You do not need to answer all 3 questions.
Yes.
You can pick whatever you feel comfortable with, or a segment of a question that you feel comfortable with.
Absolutely.
Leanne, I see your hand up.
I think the community member would be feeling humiliation, feeling like they are worthless, and like they don't belong. And let's see. I think the individual that spoke to them like that may be feeling like they're better than the community member that spoke. And they basically were very dismissive and to me very rude. And let me see. The barriers might be the community member may no longer want to attend those types of meetings, and may begin to have an unwillingness to participate because they feel they're going to be humiliated. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because anytime we do a scenario, sometimes we put ourselves in where would I fit in this scenario? Which person do I see myself as? It gives us a lot of insight into what we're going to answer. Thanks for sharing that. I'm looking down for one of the, and the community member is likely not. The comment was dignity. The employee can acknowledge this feeling and ask for more focused feedback. So it is that dignity of all. Even if the statement didn't come out in a great spot, and maybe it was hurtful and some of those things, it's remembering that person also had dignity. And we don't know under the surface of what else is happening there. And permission for the employee to reframe it and ask for things to look a little different. Thank you.
I appreciate the noting within the chat, the employee's dignity. So when you serve in the community, very often it's about the community. And it is important to highlight your own worth, your own dignity, the embarrassment of things like that, because those are real feelings. And for you to be able to acknowledge, I'm upset right now because this really is hurting my feeling of my worth, is really impactful, so that you can move forward to address it appropriately before even jumping into, and how does the community member feel? And so I appreciate that being shared, of the employees and the community members' embarrassment, and what embarrassment does to our own worth. I do see the time. I apologize. We wanted more time for questions. If anybody has any pressing questions, feel free to share right now. And we're going to keep going with the chat, but feel free, because our intention was to answer any questions that you have. If we go to the next slide, you will also receive our contact information. Oh, we're going to skip this one because of time. I'm sorry. Yeah. And we'll skip this one. And we had a lot for you all, which we're happy to share. But we wanted to make sure, Sue, if you want to just share this, and if people have questions during that time.
So there's one more reflection here. And I think this is important. And then I want to say something about, staying in contact with us. But after today, I commit to, because dignity matters when. This is a commitment you could make. I would love if you want to type it in the chat. And even if you're not typing in the chat, I would encourage you to take it with you and to think about it. And take not just what you heard today as great new information, but how does it apply to me? So after today, I commit to, because dignity matters when. While you're working on maybe typing a couple of those in the chat, I'm going to come back and read that one more time. But I do want to tell you the Penn State Dignity Collaborative is excited. We're thrilled that you're here. We feel honored to be here. And if you want to stay in contact with us, we work in all settings. We're working in higher ed, obviously, but we're working in government relations. We're working in communities. We're working in interfaith. We're working in athletics. It's going to be a lot harder for you to try and come up with somewhere that we're not willing to work. And in that, we do assessments, we do consultations, and we're open to hearing what it is, because the choice of it being called Dignity Collaborative was very, very purposeful, because this is not our work that we're building a fence around ourselves, but it's a collaboration of how do we work with others.
This is very good. Thank you so much, Karen and Sue. And I see the comments still coming, and I just want to, make note that this was going to be recorded. It's going to be on our website and also on our YouTube page. And I see Zulite, after today, I commit to seeing the good in others, because dignity matters and we reflect the light we carry. That's really good. There's really great discussion today, really great discussion in chat. And one thing I've realized, I think we know this already, that dignity is pervasive. It's in everything, and so as we see in this conversation, it can go on and on and on. We see that dignity it's in our relationships. Obviously, it's in all of our relationships, in our relationships at work, in our families, in our partnerships, in our communities, in our politics, in everything. Dignity is in everything. So this is a really great topic. It's a really great communication. So thank you so much for being with us today and helping us to define and even further put framework around dignity. So thank you. I know I'm walking away with it with a different framework. I know when I looked at the 1 and the 8, I looked at that 8 as very being guarded, because of the, I said the 8 is kind of very extreme of seeing the inherent worth and everything, yes, but being careful with that, because I think there are people that can still harm you even within their humanity. And so that's why I'm saying like 8 is really extreme. I'll give you a 7. A 7.5. So that's why I was saying that. But yeah, I thank you so much for being with us today. And this recording will be on the YouTube page. And we do have some other amazing topics for the month of May. We are not done. May, I think, 21st and 28th. We're still getting those approved. So we'll make sure that in our email that'll be following up with that, we'll have that information for you in the email. So please make sure you check that out. It's going to be one about public health and another one about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. So please come back and be with us. Sue, Karen, any final words?
Thank you for having us here. And I'm just going to really, really quick final word. Please remember that showing someone dignity in 8, whether it's an 8 or something else, doesn't mean that you respect them or agree with them. There's a significant difference. It doesn't make you complicit, and you should not be complicit to something that you find harmful. It means recognizing the humanity of another person. Doesn't mean agreement. And so I appreciate what you just said, Anita, and I wanted to kind of highlight that so
Thank
that,
you. Yes.
yeah, so that you would know too, like, you don't have to agree. I don't agree with a whole lot. So
Yeah, yes.
just being real, it has to match values, and that's vital
Sure.
in the work we're doing. So
Thank you for that. Thank you.
yeah. And
Appreciate
thank
it.
you for having us. Thank you. This was an honor. So thank you so much. Feel free to reach out. Sue, final words?
I would just say the same thing. Thank you. And thank you for your interaction, because your interaction makes us better and makes me think of new things. So it's an honor to be with folks who are engaging and thinking with us. It makes us all better people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. Well, thank you for making us. We appreciate that, making us interact. A lot of times that's not always the case, and that's fine. Everyone, they present differently, but so thank you for allowing us to be a part of your platform in that way. So we appreciate that. Everyone, have a great afternoon. Enjoy your weather wherever you're doing. It's raining over here in Pittsburgh, so great day, you all. We'll see you later on in the month.